Hello and welcome back to the next episode of this tutorial. And first of all, I will give you a quick overview what we will do in this episode. First of all, we will see how we can change the preview device. Then we will create a new calendar state for seeing what item is selected. We will add this calendar state to the different views, and we will then begin to use the state to create dynamic variables in the option view, and then we will use these dynamic variables in the styling of the views. And so we will also work with set indexes, and we will see how to make these really pop. And so let's get started. So first of all, how can we change the preview device? This is actually really easy. We just say .preview device, and then we put in exclamation marks the device, for example iPhone 10, and this is it. You can see we have the iPhone 10 right here, and it just works. Really cool. So next what we do is we create a struct called CalendarState, and this will have two variables, one called SelectedIndex, which is of type int, but it's optional, and we have a variable called lastSelectedIndex, which is also an optional integer. And these two variables, the selected index is pretty straightforward. This is the index that is currently selected. So if I click on this, for example, we want this to be selected. But now the last selected index is if I tap on this, and this is selected, and then I tap on this, and this is selected, we want this to be the last selected. So the last selected should always be the item that was selected before. And why we want to do this, I will get into later. This has to do something with the SetIndex. And so we also create a mutating func select, where we want to select an index of type integer, optional, and here we say last selected index is our currently selected index, and the selected index should be the index that was given as a parameter. And we can make these two private because we only want to mutate our state with the select function, but unfortunately we cannot make them private because we need the getters for them. But we only want to change these two with the select function. So next we will create a state, a binding. Before we do this, we actually create the binding inside here. So we create the binding where state of type CalendarState, and then we have to give it as a parameter there. So we create a state variable called state, which is of type, we can already initialize it. And inside here we just say state is self.state. Don't forget the $sign right here. This tells the compiler that we are working with a state variable. We put the same right down here, and so now we can work with our state variable, and what we will do is we will, first of all, we will create a static var offset value, which is of type CG float, and I make it static because I want that it is the same for all option views, and we will use 40 for that. And then we have, of course, our ID that we want. So each of our option views has to have a different ID so that we can tell them apart. And we will calculate it by 2 times the date.id. So the date.id, as you can see down here, increases by 1 every 2 option views. So these both have the ID, date ID 0, and these both have 1. So what we have to do is we multiply it by 2, and if it is left, we add nothing, and if it is right, we add 1. So this is 0 times 2 is still 0, plus 0 is 0. And this right here is 0 plus 1. And then we go on. This is 2, 3, and you get the idea. Then the var is selected, which is of type bool. This just tells us if the state.selected index is equal to ID. Then we will create the x offset, which is of type CG float, and here we just return is left, and then we say option view dot offset value or minus option view dot offset value. So we do this because the x offset should be the offset when we click it, how it should move. So x is this direction, and we want, if it is left, we want to increase the x offset, so we want it to go this way. But if it is not left, we want it to go this way, so it has to be negative. Yeah, the y offset is pretty simple because we just want it to be we just want it to go up, so pretty simple right here. And then the text color, here we say is selected, and if it is selected, we want the text color to change to black, and if it is not selected, we want to have a normal navigation color. And yeah, so next we will create the SetIndex, but we will leave it at 0 right now, and I will show you why this is interesting in a bit. Yeah, so next we change these colors to the text color, and yeah, so now this will be changed to is selected, and if it is selected, we want this to be clear because we don't want the border, and if it is not selected, we still want to have our gray opacity. Yeah, so the corner radius should always be determined by the selected variable. If it is selected, we want a corner radius of 8, otherwise we want it to be 0. Next, the offset should be selected. If it is selected, we want our x offset, otherwise we want 0. And the same for the y value is selected, y offset and 0. Yeah, so then we will have a shadow, which we only have if it is selected. If it is selected, we use color.black.opacity, and here we use the opacity of 0.3. We use a radius of 20. The x should be minus 0.5 times x offset, so that we have a nice offset to the view. So if the view is up here, we want our shadow to be right in the middle between the empty space and the, as you could say, floating view. Of course, we have to say .clear right here, and the same offset is with y, but not the x offset, but y offset. Yeah, so then we can continue with the animation, which should be ease in out, which is pretty standard. It's a nice animation, and an on tap gesture, so that's where the magic happens. In our on tap gesture, we say if is selected, so we have to use self, of course, or if we are not selected, we want self.state.select self or the ID. So basically, if we haven't touched the view, or if it is not selected currently, we want that it should be selected. Otherwise, we want to unselect it. So we say self.state.select nil. And yeah, so the cool thing about this is if we change something inside of this state right here, because this is a binding, every variable that uses the state will also get updated, and the view will get updated. So all of these things will also get updated. And yeah, so we can see that this now doesn't really work, because I think I have yeah, I think this should be minus. Yeah, so now we have this, and you can see this looks awful with cutting it off right here, and we don't want that. And we can fix that with our SetIndex. So we can say our SetIndex if is selected, return 20, and else return 0. So the selected is always on top. So of course that this works, we have to add a SetIndex right here as well. But if we resume it now, we should see that this brings us a little improvement, if it will work. So yeah, so you can see now that this works better, but still one thing that does not look good is if we have this selected and we select this right now, you can see how this starts clipping under this one. And to change this, we say else if state.last selected is equal to ID, we want to return 10, and else we want to return 0. So the one that was selected before the new one should be on top of the others, but not on top of the newest. So what have I done wrong right here? I think I have to say last selected index. Yeah, so now we can see that we don't have that problem right now anymore. And yeah, so we are nearly finished with the calendar view. What I will do now is create this little rectangle, this yellow that we saw in the first design. And yeah, to do that, we will take all of that without the SetIndex, cut it, add a set stack, and paste it. And take care that the SetIndex is applied to the to the whole. And yeah, so now what we will do is we will create a rectangle that has a frame with max width 6, max min height 0, max height dot infinity, and the alignment leading. So then we will add a foreground color of yellow. We will add an offset, and this offset should be, if it is selected, we want this offset to be 0, otherwise we want it to be minus x offset fourths, and yeah, y offset should be 0. And then we have an animation as well, and this one ease in out. Yeah, so now we can see this looks not really good, so we don't like that. So what we will do is we add alignment to our set stack, and we say if it is left, we want leading alignment, otherwise we want trailing alignment. So leading and trailing. Now we should see that we have the yellow bar right here, and we have it right here. And yeah, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, hope to see you in the